while I was learning about forest bathing, they talk about land acknowledgements, which
Hmm.
are obviously very important for introducing people to the place where they are and the ancestors that have been there and come and gone. Being from the United States, although I was born on this land, this is not my culture. This is not where my ancestors come from. I'm not Native American or indigenous. But what it did teach me was, however, your ancestors in the British Isles and in Eastern Europe, your ancestors understood spirituality from this same exact depth. And this animistic pagan way is so parallel to what the indigenous people believe in all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so instantly I thought, wow, I'm not separate from these indigenous beliefs, and I can acknowledge that they are caretakers of this land. And what do I want to do with that now that I'm here?
Hello, this is Kevin Pennell, and welcome to episode 153 of Toward a Better Life. That was Lady Eve with Gunshae as we continue our journey around the wheel of the year in this winter season. As always, a link in the show notes will lead you to more downloading and purchasing opportunities of music from Lady Eve. All music on the program is used by the permission of the artist. Thank you, dear listener, for tuning in to this program. As the days grow longer, the darkness giving way to light here in the Northern Hemisphere, the longest night of the year has passed, and the days begin to grow longer. That time prompts us to go within toward deeper awareness and introspection. Now, this natural flow with the wheel of life ushers in an ultimate aim toward balance, harmony, compassion, and kindness. And this flow, once tuned in, helps us personally, culturally, and spiritually. Most importantly, change begins with each one of us as an individual. And as I always say, it's what I like to share on this podcast from around the world, seeking others of the same spirit, heart, and mind. And like a school, it teaches us to be better and better human being, better person, better spirit, and continue a journey to wholeness and harmony, not only for ourselves, but for the generations yet to come. I also offer the opportunity, as always, to share your music, your prose, your poetry, your storytelling on the program. Just send to me, kevin@towardaBetterLife.com, and we'll go on from there. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't done so already through your favorite podcast platform, and keep following us for weekly magical insights into earth-based spirituality, self-development, and self-care. Also, remember to support the program by leaving your review on Apple and Spotify podcasts. It also just takes a moment to leave that review, and it is certainly appreciated for the algorithms. Do visit my website, too, towardaBetterLife.com. You can contact me there to learn more about your own free discovery call to help you on your journey, along with other prior episodes, learning opportunities, and services that I offer outside the podcast, plus a few accessories to help you on your own journey. Contact me through my website or send me inquiries, kevin@towardaBetterLife.com. I'm welcoming Lady Eve to the podcast this week. You just heard one of her musical selections at the beginning of the episode, and we'll have another after our chat about her work surrounding sound walks, and forest bathing. Eve is a musician, artist, and the owner of Singing Pines. Eve grew up in Atlanta and spent summers in Appalachia basking in the aroma and nurturing to help deepen her love and appreciation of trees and the forest while playing in the mountain streams. Eve is a certified forest bathing guide by the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, and enjoys sharing her passion for soundscape and sensory somatic experiences. As a bardic druid with the Order of Bards of Ancient Druids and an active Zazen practitioner, she incorporates meditation and subtle awareness through her endeavors. Her artistic advocacy focuses on the connection between music, environment, accessibility, and wellness. That's a lot, but you can do it. In 2016, she began to lead an ongoing series of sound walks, which gives the public opportunities to experience natural surroundings through listening techniques, meditative breathing, and contemplating focus. Now, in recent years, the Soundwalk program has grown into an artist residency called the ACA Soundscape Field Station at Canaveral National Seashore here in the U.S., and an accessibility program for blind and partially sighted youth called Young Sound Seekers, sponsored by the National Park Service. Now, these programs highlight the growing importance of environmental soundscape on the quality of health for all living creatures. As a musician and soundscape artist, she uses field recordings, electronic music, spoken word, and classical oboe in her compositions and collaborations. She's also performed at several venues throughout the North American continent. So let's get on with this week's chat about forest bathing and sound walks by inhaling the forests with Lady Eve. I am so pleased to welcome Eve to Toward a Better Life today. Eve, how are you doing and where are you located?
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. I'm pleased to be here. I'm broadcasting today through the airwaves from Florida, from Central Florida, even though I'm originally from Atlanta and the Appalachia. I do love the mountains, but I'm closer to the sea right now.
Okay. All right. I would like you in a moment to share your story, if you would, with us, Eve, but I need to let our listeners know that we got acquainted because of my association with OBOD, the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, which is, of course, located in the UK. And we have a thing that I've talked about before called the Hearth. And I read a piece that you featured in one of the circles there, and it started out, and I'm going to read this if you don't mind. Hello, Appalachia Ken. I just co facilitated a forest bathing and meditation retreat in Rabun Gap, Georgia. As a bard and certified forest bathing guide, I find these two paths are the perfect combination to bring deeper awareness of our connection to the elements and ancestral knowledge. Our circle went into a beautiful sacred grove meditation. There's more, but the pictures here were phenomenal, Eve. And why don't you tell us a little bit about Eve and your bardic journey and where you kind of dovetail all that into forest bathing?
It really is so very connected in a deep way. Growing up in Atlanta, I grew up in the city, but Atlanta's a very green city, and I was always resonated with the trees in my neighborhood, and I would walk through the forests that are in the city there, and then spent my summers in Appalachia in Raven Gap, right where this retreat was held in a beautiful location that is an art center. It's an artist residency center called Hambidge, right in Raven Gap near Clayton, Georgia, almost in North Carolina. So it's just the foothills of the Appalachia. And I spent my summers there just frolicking. And remember my parents saying, "You're so calm when you return from the mountains." And, it never really I didn't understand quite why I was so calm. And then later in life, I just understood even deeper the power of nature to heal us and the power of being, especially around trees, that they are our oldest kin. They are the ones that, we have this intimate relationship with where we're breathing out and they're breathing in and vice versa. And it's just so inherent with us. So I'm a proud tree hugger and I absolutely love, you know, exploring different forests, whether it's whatever place I go to in the world, forests are the thing I gravitate towards the most. So that's why I travel is to just visit different pockets of old growth and taking that from, what is it about my experience that brought me to forest bathing? It started with myself being a musician. I play oboe, but I also play electronic music and produce music in addition to being a DJ with electronic music. And I absolutely love vibration and understand that everything is vibration from a very visceral standpoint all my life. I just walk around with this sensory, almost radar emanating out of me and feeling all the vibrations coming at me. So, as a musician, I went and lived in Vancouver, British Columbia for about 10 years
Hmm.
and surrounded by all those old growth forests, in addition to the music scene there, I learned about a practice called sound walks.
Hmm.
And sound walking is something that came out of the work of R. Murray Schafer. He's a composer and professor, was a composer and professor at Simon Fraser University. And he used to teach his composition students how to listen to nature
Hmm.
and understand sounds and tones that were different from the Western musical scale. and other world scales that are out there. And so that really resonated with me from my love of nature, but also being a musician. And from there, when I came to Florida, I started leading sound walks for the public. This was a silent meditative walk for about an hour in an environment just for listening and heighten awareness of hearing and even sensing vibration with your body. Very popular. I did this for about 8 years voluntarily for the community. And then from there, I discovered forest bathing, and it just became, it's a trendy thing. A lot of people have heard the terminology, and I instantly said, "Oh, this is like a sound walk, but using all five senses." So I thought, "Oh my goodness, I need to know more about what this is, this sensory experience, guiding people to awaken more senses than just listening and feeling the vibration with their body, but also smelling the air, tasting things that you foraged in the forest, and touching, again, tree hugging. It all comes back to, really feeling yourself as one in our space rather than separate from nature. And this really resonated with me. So, for those that don't know, forest bathing is also known as nature therapy. And it comes from a Japanese tradition where it's called Shinrin Yoku, which literally means inhaling the essence of a forest. And so these are phytoncides, the natural aroma that comes from forests, especially healthy forests, are antibacterial, antimicrobial. They can help us in so many ways, just as aromatherapy. But then there's the actual act of being in the forest, and your eyes are seeing things in a different way, and just being there, using the forest as it is the therapist. I shouldn't say using the forest, but to be with the forest in a way where you're open to having it be receptive to all of the things that it can offer. And the guide, if you're a forest bathing guide in a certified sense, you're just opening the doors, you're guiding people, creating a safe space for them, being there, witnessing their journey, holding that space. And instantly, when I started doing the certification for forest bathing, YouTube recommended Tea with a Druid. And I said, "Oh my goodness, what is this? Tea with the Druid? That sounds amazing." And so I watched an episode and was instantly enchanted by Philip Cargam. I said, "Wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about. I can feel his energy. He's so calm and so very well spoken in what he's talking about. He knows how to build community. He knows how to bring people together to feel this, to hold space for them, to witness what is happening with this community. You think about the wellness industry and guru culture and all of that. This is not that. It's not about popularity and fame. It's truly about feeling yourself as one together, but also with the natural environment, or the more than human world, as we would say in forest bathing."
Well, let's see. You've just taken care of I don't know how many questions I already had.
I
Like
can keep talking.
like what brought you to Obod? Well, we know that one now. When did you join Obod if you don't?
Mm. So my trajectory for this was that, again, I started leading sound walks. Then heard about forest bathing maybe 5 years ago or so. About 4 years ago, got certified. And again, instantly, YouTube said, "You would be interested in this Tea with a Druid. You should watch that." So, what I did was I was a weekly participant at Tea with a Druid for about a year. I watched it weekly,
Hmm.
live, for about a year. And during that year, which I didn't even think about till later, the whole wheel turned, and I saw all the seasons go by, and I was more in tune and more um, in touch and noticed and had this heightened awareness of all of the seasonal changes, which strangely enough, I had never done to that depth.
Hmm.
I always love autumn and spring because those are the time when the seasons change most dramatically, and
Hmm.
the sun is moving, or I should say the earth is moving, much faster. Um, through those seasons. And so it was really beautiful that I took that year and I had no expectations about, oh, I'm going to join this or anything. I just enjoyed watching Tea with the Druid and having my tea with everyone and being in the grove meditation. And then it was after that first, whole cycle had happened that I said, I want to do this. I want to take the Bardic course, and this is my community. This is what I believe in. This is what I've always believed in. I have a very kind of animistic,
Hmm.
core to my beliefs, and have always gravitated towards things like Buddhism and Shinto in the Japanese tradition, which of course is very animistic as well. And the other thing, well, and so now it's been about 2 years since I finished the Bardic course, and I'm living by the wheel. And every year, as these seasons go by, I notice more, I feel more in tune and more in touch, and it just gets deeper and deeper. There's no end to this. It's such a profound experience, and I'm so glad that I did this for myself. The other aspect of this that I don't want to gloss over is while I was learning about forest bathing, they talk about land acknowledgements, which
Hmm.
are obviously very important for introducing people to the place where they are and the ancestors that have been there and come and gone. Being from the United States, although I was born on this land, this is not my culture. This is not where my ancestors come from. I'm not Native American or indigenous. But what it did teach me was, however, your ancestors in the British Isles and in Eastern Europe, your ancestors understood spirituality from this same exact depth. And this animistic pagan way is so parallel to what the indigenous people believe in all over the world.
Hmm.
And so instantly I thought, wow, I'm not separate from these indigenous beliefs, and I can acknowledge that they are caretakers of this land. And what do I want to do with that now that I'm here as, say, an immigrant over many hundreds of years? But how can I make this more open for other people that maybe even have guilt associated with colonialism? So this was something that also spoke to me, is I wanted to understand better indigenous beliefs without cultural appropriation or by
Hmm.
stepping on someone else's, you know, their ancestral work. And so that has brought an incredible depth to my experience just as someone on this land, and feeling akin to how can I move forward with this and caretake this land, for those that cannot speak, like the animals and the trees and the fungus and the insects and all the wonderful things that are around me. How can I be a better steward and help with being an advocate in this place where I am?
Yeah. I I had Dana O'Driscoll on. She's with the American Druidry organization. I had her on a while back, and they have a new book that she just brought out. And I find it interesting that you brought up about the colonialization. It's one of the things we talked about there, and it's really interesting when you go back and you look at the colonialization aspects, but that can be construed as something on a negative sense of robbing the indigenous people basically of what is natural. But I don't want to go there. Where I want to go is the thing that you were mentioning about indigenous people around the world. And we think about the indigenous people from around the world, they all seem to embrace the natural world. I don't care where you're from. You know, you have a certain group that's there. You have the Aborigines. You have the people, the magical people in the UK. You have the Native American or indigenous or terms that you want to use here in the United States and North America. And there all seems to be that common thread of a respect and an honoring and an animistic view toward the natural world. I think it's interesting sometimes when people start talking about, oh, well, you worship trees, you worship animals. No, there's a difference. We respect them and we honor them as our equal, and that we are here to support each other, not to, I'm going to use the term, not to lord over anything, but be a part of everything. And that to me is so important. And that's where when I first heard of forest bathing, that really helped me to understand it. I got exposed to forest bathing the first time when I was still in very close proximity to, we have the North Carolina Arboretum here. It's like 25 miles from me now. I volunteered with them for like 6 or 7 years, and we would go out there and we would have daily walks, just to walk around and and you find yourself decompressing, and you have that, what I like to think of as you alluded to, is you have a natural type of aromatherapy going on. You can smell the pine, you can smell the cedar, you can smell the flowers when they come in bloom. You can even smell the earth when it's really wet and stuff like this. And you're connected with everything around you, from the salamanders to the deer to the bear, no matter what it is. And you recognize that we're all part of this together, and what can we do to make it better for everyone? And I think with forest bathing and with the work that you're doing, that's what we're about to do. That is our joy. That is our happiness. That's our happy place, you know,
It
to
is
do the
such a
same.
happy place. It has always been my happy place. And what's even more rewarding is sharing that with other people
Mm,
and then seeing them come out of the darkest places sometimes and find their happiness. And all I did was ask them or invite them to go and be with a tree or
mm,
introduce yourself to a little squirrel
mm,
or go sit by the water and enjoy the water in a way. And what I love about forest bathing is its simplicity. It is wonderful for those people that do not spend enough time in nature. Perhaps they're afraid of it. Perhaps they were
mm,
never near it. It's very good for those that are working through anxiety or other types of trauma, is to bring them into a safe space. It could be even a city park. It doesn't have to be a massive old growth forest.
mm,
It could just be somewhere where they can connect with the elements and they can connect with things that are more than human, and you just sit there with them and you give them invitations. And I go through a guided meditation, and most certified guides go through this same meditation where you're guiding them to awaken each sense. And it only
mm,
takes 5 or 10 minutes. You can even do it standing up. So I've led this at science centers. I've led this for people at art centers, just the general public, environmental centers, and it is different every single time, just as you're walking around outdoors and it's an improvisation in what's happening with the weather and the sounds and the smells. Everything changes, by the moment. It's wonderful to watch people drop their defenses and just drop into the moment. And I don't even ask them that many questions. I just say, what are you noticing? And then we have these circles where we'll get together at the end of each invitation, and people just express the most profound things. And I'm just there to witness it and guide them into the next stage. So, forest bathing is a really beautiful entry point into this. And it's something that anyone can do, regardless of, your economic background or where you're from, or if you are privileged enough to be near green space. It's just totally welcoming for everyone. I've done this with veteran groups. I've done this with people that are blind and partially sighted. It's amazing how accessible it is.
everybody connects with the natural world around them in their own way because we're all individuals. And I had this conversation recently with a client of mine because they were talking about how, they weren't sure about what their senses or which sense was more powerful for them because I was talking about hypnotherapy, and they want to do a session, and I was mentioning to them, well, because something that really brought it about was the olfactory system. Because both of us picked up, believe it or not, earlier on lavender, and it just literally came. It came out of quote quote out of the blue. There was no essential oils around. There was no flora around, emanating lavender, and yet both of us smelled it at the same time. Now, for me, when in an ethereal sense, that's a message. That's a very clear message that's going on. And I said, well, and I explained about how the olfactory system is a very, very powerful system. It can bring back all kinds of memories from past lives, memories from incidents in our current life, in our current iteration of life. So, there's a reason for that. And she says, well, do you suppose that's my primary, area? And I said, it's possible. I can't say that for sure, but you find out what sense have you that is the most profound, if I could say. And I don't know that I've ever really isolated it for myself because when I'm out in the natural world, if I'm out in the forest, um, I just kind of, I'm going to say, melt myself into the forest and I'll seat someplace and I just wait and I listen and I smell and I feel and I touch and I do all that stuff until something clicks and I say, okay, that's where I'm going to go today. So I'm not limiting myself to sight, sound, and so forth. It's whatever is necessary today, and it's whatever the universe, or I'll say the natural world, wants to share with me so that we make that, here's the magic word, connection, and that's the magic, isn't it? To make that connection.
Absolutely. And I find myself being kind of like a radio receptor.
Hmm.
I'm a satellite dish. I'm picking up these senses, but I have to allow myself to do that, which means I'm getting out of my own head. I'm not worrying about what's for lunch or what's going to happen then or what's in the past or what's in the future. It is being in the present to the nth degree and dropping into that and being able to go as deep as you want. So there are it's beautiful that forest bathing is a gateway for people to go in and just touch it and see, okay, how do I feel here? Then they get used to that and they become more comfortable with it. Then they can go deeper into it. And again,
Hmm.
it's been years that I've been going down this path, and I know you have more years than me with druidry. I'm excited to see where I am in 10, 20 years with this and how I can integrate. And that's really the beautiful thing of moving from being a musician and just being receptive and loving nature to doing sound walks and sharing this with others to learning about forest bathing and then being drawn into druidry is that now I'm taking elemental teachings and I'm saying, okay, what can I do with water, air, and fire and earth? And how can I bring that into forest bathing? And how can I give those that want to go deeper little hints of, here's a little nugget, here's a little invitation. And I do see that there is a huge increase in, say, the Wicca community, and people on YouTube are very visible right now with,
Mm.
them being different types of witches and so forth, which I absolutely love. So there's other pagan groups that aren't hesitate to share this kind of ancestral wisdom and be seen. And this kind of representation really matters because I can go on to social media and I can go on to YouTube and I can find these communities now. Whereas, it wasn't always so open.
Mm.
And now we're able to connect and really bring this to others in a way that can be as deep as we want it, or it can be just an introduction for them.
Do you see an upsurge of this interest in forest bathing and I'll say Druidry, paganism, Wicca? Do you see an upsurge of it? It seems to be more in the forefront of you, or do you think it's just because we're more aware of it? Which do you think? Can you tell?
That's a good question. And I think about that sometimes. I'm like, was this here before I was interested in it, or is it just here now because I know that I want to look for it? I feel like, especially the witch community, the people, the women that are practicing slow living, the women that are vlogging, and it
Mm.
seems to be a very female dominated group on YouTube especially, and I just love it. I think it's very empowering for women to find these types of um, feminine ancestral ways and to join together in these communities and be supported in that way and not be like, oh, you're crazy, I don't know what you're talking about. And so I feel like there's a more supportive community, which leads to other people coming out and saying, oh, I want to do this too. I'm not ashamed of this. This is really what is the root of spirituality for me, is being
Hmm.
connected to nature. And so I think it's a little bit of both, Kevin. I think
Yeah.
it's, yes, I'm noticing it more, but there's also an upsurge in it, in a trending, I guess, if you want, if you will.
Well, I know that I saw something recently that was in social media, and it had to do with Professor Ronald Hutton. I hope I've got that right, but Ronald's been on Druidcast with Dave the Bard in the past, and Ronald is very very well spoken and very knowledgeable in the pagan community, Wicca community, Druidry, and he made a reference that and I need to get in touch with him because it's a thing that says his understanding is that paganism is on the rise in the UK.
Mm, I sure
And
hope so.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
and
in the United States too. I
yeah, I
tell
think yeah.
you, I have told so many people about Tea with the Druid. And at first I was kind of like, are they going to think I'm crazy that I'm telling them to go watch this? And then they would watch it and I'm surprised at how many people resonate with it immediately.
Well, it's amazing to me too because the current level is somewhere around 30,000 members in OBOD.
Wow.
And that says nothing for the ancient order of Druids in America, which is what Dana O'Driscoll is a part of. And they're in the thousands now as well. And there just seems to be a big shift in the sense that people are really trying very hard to connect. I, of course, I'm a podcaster, so I listen to podcasts, and I find that there's a theme recently that it's really coming to the forefront, and I think I would agree with it. That seems to be a lot of people feel the need to connect, and it can be with people of like mind, it can be with the natural world, but we are so connected, we're disconnected. We're so connected electronically that we're disconnected. The other thing that I read recently is that with all of the technology that we have around us these days, we are not, as a human race, we are not designed to be in this state that we're in. That what state am I talking about? I'm talking about that we're in almost a constant state of fight or flight. And they wonder why it is we have high blood pressure, why it is we have the stress, why we have, all these different maladies and pathologies that are facing us in our lives, in our daily lives. And people say, "Oh, I'm not stressed." Really? Well, go drive down the highway. Go drive I-4 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon down in Florida, or up here I-26. Pick a highway. Pick downtown, any town, and you're going to find yourself in less than 5 minutes gripping your steering wheel and wish you get out of this Dodge Road, you know, and it's just the way it is. Or you're in. I love this. We're around the season, right? Um, we this is coming out on Christmas Day. And it's really interesting when you go in. I remember an incident some years ago that I was in line and I was visiting a friend up here in North Carolina. I was living in Florida, and we needed to go get something at a store. I won't say what the store is, but let's just say it was a big box store. And we're all in line and we're waiting patiently, and it's around this time of year. And you're hearing the grumbling and the sneering and the upsetness and everything else. And this one lady was just griping and complaining behind me that why isn't this thing moving faster? And I just turned around, smiled at her, and said, "Isn't this a lovely time of year?" I thought she was going to slug me, but we're in a constant state of fight or flight. No wonder we are in the sense that we are of needing a connection with the natural world. It's a breath of fresh air, isn't it, Eve? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
you
And
you
I do want to piggyback on that in that I work at a university. So I get to see a lot of young people on a
uh-huh.
daily basis. And one thing I'm seeing is a pendulum swing of them having grown up on technology and these smartphones, and they understand. They know immediately what kind of anxiety and what problems that it gives them. And so there's this shift in I'm gonna have no phone days and I'm gonna put my phone down
Good,
very intentionally for
good.
this part of my day. And they're not buying it. They understand and they're much more aware than we give them credit for. I think that they're just being, kind of mindless right in the screen, and all the social media companies, have them right where they want them. But it's this beautiful pendulum swing of, finding connection with people without your phones and having community spaces where they're not acceptable and people want to talk and they want to meet you and they want to feel your energy. And I see that even happening in the Orlando community, because Orlando's always, we joke that it was built by the mouse and that, we all everything is based around theme parks and so forth. And that was the case at one time. But there's this whole group of people that are interested in spirituality, that are interested in connection, that want to, you know, have something different for themselves. And I see it building, and it does have a lot of momentum right now. And that's something that, you typically say, oh, I'm going to go to California to where all the cool people are. I'm going to go to Colorado or the West Coast. And sure, there's a bunch of cool stuff going on out there. But now people, because of the internet, they see that I can do this myself. I can DIY the whole community, and there's like minded people out there. So I think if you're using technology in a way that connects you so that you can then meet in person, and you can then, like you and I, are having this beautiful interchange using technology,
Hmm.
but in a positive and a different way.
Yeah, it's not controlling us, we're controlling it.
That's right.
That
That's
that's
right.
that's a big piece of it, isn't it? Um, so when you I want to have an opportunity here, and I'm not going to lose it. When you have taken people out and you're doing the sound walks or the forest bathing, whatever terminology, do you mind me asking, do you remember any particular incident? Because I remember when I've talked with someone about this sort of thing before, a couple of years ago, within the first year or so that this podcast was on, I talked with someone from uh, about forest bathing. We were out in the forest, and they had mentioned that when you're out doing forest bathing, be prepared for just about anything because you've got a group of people with you, and you might have some emotional releases, or you might have situations where people they'll just out of the blue they'll just start bawling their eyes out, or they'll laugh almost to the point of hysterics, and you go over as the guide and say, "How are you doing?" And they will tell you, wow, this is so much more than I ever anticipated. Do you remember, without giving up any private information, any particular one that might stick out to you?
Mm. My role is to be their support.
Hmm.
And so I absolutely am hyper aware of everybody's state of being and how they're doing. I'm constantly checking in with everybody, even if they don't know I'm doing it. I do remember that I had one woman that was terribly anxious. She did not know where we were going. I tried to, soothe that by giving them the route. And I said, here's what's going to happen. We're going to stand up for 5 minutes. I'm going to talk for 2 minutes. And I was really didactic about what was going to be happening. We went out on the walk, and I think everybody felt her energy also. So that's
Hmm.
another thing is that other people can also be a support system, not just me,
Hmm.
and they will help out in a very kind and loving way. And so we got out into the outdoors into a circle, and she just went off on her own and wanted to sit under a tree. And I said, okay, I see you over there. I want you to see that I see you, that I'm acknowledging you over there, but I'm gonna hold this space for the group because it's the group is together and they want this experience. So I'm gonna get them going. And as soon as I gave them an invitation and got them going, I went over to her as soon as I could. It wasn't but a couple minutes, but she knew that I was paying attention to her. And I just said, "Hey, what can I do for you? How can I help at all?" And she said, "No, I just want to sit here." And I said, "Wonderful. Well, this tree that you're under has got you, and you are safe under this tree, and you take as long as you want." And so it's just reading the room, so to speak, and
Hmm.
making sure that everybody knows they're taken care of. But I haven't had a moment where someone has kind of, you say, ruined it for the rest of them. It
Oh no,
never
no.
happened. It's never happened where someone has, you know, been so overwhelmed that it's been difficult for others because other people always step up. They say, "Oh, well, I've had that experience too, and I resonate with what you're going through." And it's just creating this tight circle all together. How I feel when I'm listening to Tea with the Druid and we're all sitting around the fire and we are holding hands and we squeeze the hands next to each other. I feel so amazing that my community is right here. Even if it's in my mind, I know you're there, and it's just a beautiful thing, and I feel so supported.
Well, you've actually gone exactly where I really wanted you to go with that, because I think one of the most important factors in any kind of a forest bathing or sound walk would be the sense of community and the sense of support among everyone, and everyone is there to support each other. And if someone does begin to cry because it's such an emotional release or an emotional experience for them, what they immediately or very nearby to immediate, they feel supported by the group around them. And if not by the leader, by the group. And they recognize this isn't so bad after all. And it could be that, it could be a matter of they're so anxious about doing something like this. And it's almost like when you're working with someone who really wants to make a shift in their life and they come up to that block wall or whatever it may be, that particular thing that's in their midst, and they realize they need to climb over it or go through it or go around it. Doesn't matter, but that wall is there. And when they get through that wall, the whole world shifts. And sometimes people choose to turn around and walk away from that wall, and that's okay too, because they're just not ready for it. And that's okay. But just to be sensitive enough to the people's needs, and that's what I'm hearing is so important with forest bathing and sound walking, that you're really cognizant and you're very empathetic to the people that are around. And it's there for anyone. And I'm glad you brought up about the thing with anxiety, because that seems to be one of the number one things we hear about is anxiety and blood pressure.
Mm.
And this is an opportunity that people can have if you feel, and I'll throw this out there, that to the listeners, if you feel like you would like to do something like this, but you're apprehensive about it, I'm going to say go with your feeling down deep inside and find someone who is certified in forest bathing or someone who has the training to help you through it because potentially is one of the best experiences you can possibly have. It can be life changing.
I couldn't agree more, Kevin. Thank you for saying that. It's came from my intuition to lead people on sound walks. However, taking an actual training to be a forest bathing guide took it to another level. And it's just what you're talking about. It's being sensitive, it's giving people space, it's being a
Mhm.
witness for what they're going through. One thing they say, in addition to the best motto ever, which, as I mentioned earlier, the forest is the therapist and the guide just opens the doors. So
Mhm.
that says it all right there. But witnessing other people without putting my own story and expectations on them. So, what I mean by that is one of the most profound lessons in being a certified forest bathing guide is that you're allowing people to go through whatever it is they're going through. And I'm not trying to relate to them. Oh, that reminds me of one time I did blah, blah, blah. Or, oh, that's like this other thing I had. No, it probably is not.
We're not going
Just
into
like what
transference
they're
here.
going through. They're going through their thing, and I've gone through my thing, and they might seem like they're similar, but they might be completely different. And all I need to do is be the witness. All I'm doing is saying, I'm listening to you. I'm listening. I'm listening. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
The end.
Before we get too far along, I do want to ask, how do people go about getting in touch with you? And you have a lovely website, I should say. Is I'm going to see, let's see. Oh, it is. Okay. Singing singingpines.co. And if you go on this site, it has information there like coming up January 11th, 2026, 3 to 6 p.m. at and different opportunities that people can have to enjoy the outside world. And then you've got all sorts of wonderful pictures here of experiences, and it's lovely. So tell us about your website and tell us about how to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. You said it. It's singingpines.co. That's kind of calm without the M. It's basically for small businesses. And what I love about just the word singing pines is that I love listening. I love listening to the earth. I love being receptive to it. And pines are what I grew up around. You think about Moonlight Through the Pines and Ray Charles in Georgia, and that's what I grew up with. So it's something that speaks of my beginnings, but also myself as a musician, and also thinking about listening to acoustics, to listening to vibrations, to even geomancy and listening to the ley lines and the dragon lines of the world and really feeling energy in a different way. So I try to infuse not just forest bathing or sound walking, but also my bardic practice and what I have learned from that and how the depth is just constantly, you know, evolving and going deeper into merging and becoming integrated with the earth. And so that's where I really come from, my ethos when I take people out on these excursions. But my website is the place where, I want to reach out to everyone and let them know who I am, what I'm doing, and I had at one point was leading about one a month. I was having the forest bathing excursions once a month.
Hmm.
And so now I think it's evolved is a good word for it. I've evolved into deeper and more impactful and intentional experiences, hence the retreat that I held in North Georgia in October of 2025. That was an amazingly powerful 3 days that I worked with about 10 people with a meditation teacher from Atlanta who has another podcast. I'll give a shout out to Our Mindful Nature podcast if you want to check her out, as well as Kevin's repertoire of shows. And it just was the place I want to go is to do deeper, more meaningful and intentional work with people, as opposed to quantity. It's all about quality of the experience. And if I will take people out, if it's just one on one, and you want to go out and do some forest bathing, let me know. Send me an email, and we can have an experience at the Florida Springs, which are some of my favorite places to go because the natural water that bubbles up here is, the beaches are very famous, but the
Hmm.
springs are where it's at, and that's, a really beautiful ancestral place to be connected to the elements, and I love taking people there.
Yeah, I can just start naming off, and one of them that comes to mind is Rock Springs, Alexander Springs, Rainbow Springs, Itchitucknee, the river, and I've scuba dived some of that stuff. And it's a phenomenal experience to do that. I remember one scuba diving expedition that I had one time, and we actually had it in December at Alexander Springs. The outside air temperature was, I think, 30 something degrees. It was early in the morning. And when you go to the spring, of course, springs are typically year round, they're 72 degrees, give or take. And you walk out, and it was almost enchanting or ethereal when you walked, because there was a fog, a very light fog over the spring. And then of course you get into the spring, and it's like, oh, this is great. It's like bathwater by comparison. But it's such a magical and enchanting area. There's so many places like that, to appreciate the natural world. So when you think of forest bathing, yes, the grandfather and grandmother trees are all there, and the old oaks and all that, and it's so very powerful of an experience to touch that tree and feel the energy of the tree flow through your body, and feeling that connection not just flow in through your hands, and then it goes down through your body and down through your feet, and you feel the roots that are coming out of the bottoms of your feet. It's magic to experience something like that. And if you haven't done that, you really need to get in. I'll say it. You need to get in touch with Eve, because this is it's a wonderful experience to do this sort of thing, and it's so special. If you want to talk about, we're coming in the wheel of the year, we've already passed New Year's, but in the more Julian way of looking at things, we have a new year coming up, and everyone's talking about resolutions. Resolution, schmesolution. But to me, if you're looking for something to start the new year, you might want to really seriously think about doing some forest bathing. Just it will just set you on your pathway to a beautiful experience for the rest of the year. Okay, I'm going to be quiet now.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I really do feel like forest bathing can take you towards a better life, and it is a practice. It is something that is free to do on your own. Obviously, you want to help your guide out, but it's something that you can continue as a practice on your own and do it almost anywhere. But I appreciate you acknowledging how magical the springs are. It is a place that I resonate with on such a deep level that I go there almost every week just to feel the energy, and I know that people. Indigenous people, the Seminoles, the runaway slaves that were here in Florida, even the people that, had colonized Florida, they always gravitated towards those springs, and they would
Hmm.
built their houses and they built resorts on them, and that people were still going back to them because there is a resonance about those spaces, and they are unlike anywhere else in the world. I've been to cenotes in Mexico, but the ones in Florida are so different. And it could be just the live oaks with the old Spanish moss hanging from it, and all these beautiful root systems that you feel there. But the nature is alive and well in Florida, that which has not been developed at least. And we really fight to protect these springs because they are a national treasure.
Well, you stop to think about the true indigenous people that have not been in Florida for probably 300 years, 2 to 300 years. The Seminoles were a group that were really a combination of two different tribes. The original people, the Calusas, the Tequestas, the Timucuans, all of those, they're gone. They've been gone. The Appalachee, and so you wonder and I've thought about this when I was at some of those springs sometimes, just to sit and look at the spring, lean yourself up against a tree, and feel the presence of the ancestors that were there. Particularly in Central Florida, you would be more likely to have the Timucuans around you, and you get out toward the coast, you have the Tequestas. But you stop to think about all of the magical stuff that's around there. Now, uh, we went to the a petroglyph that's probably an hour and a half from here. And the petroglyphs, archaeologically speaking, they've been able to determine that part of the petroglyph, and this wasn't painted, this was actually etched into stone. And they've done rubbings on this, and they've been able to see that this was used in rituals and ceremony, not just for a couple of years. This is for centuries they've used this spot. And there's places like that all around the world. We think about the UK and the standing stones. We think about Stonehenge, and we think about all of the other magical places. And we've got magical places around the world. And all you need to do is just open your heart, open your spirit, open your mind, and pick up on it. We haven't even touched on your music, Eve. We started the show with it. We're going to finish the show with it. But you love music too, and I almost think that we're going to end up going down a rabbit hole, and we're running out of time. But what you can also, everyone, you can also pick up from Eve on her SoundCloud, and tell us a little bit about that, if you would, Eve.
Of course. Again, I am a classically trained oboe player, but also love electronic music, mainly ambient. So we're thinking Brian Eno, John Hopkins, Stars of the Lid. There's all sorts of even like Sigur Rós if you get into kind of a little bit more guitar-driven stuff, but really beautiful ethereal music is my jam. And so I have a few mixes that are, I even have a Mixcloud, which is the username Lady Eve. And that's what I typically, my moniker for music is Lady Eve on SoundCloud as well. And I was with a band called Gunshae in British Columbia for quite a few many years, and basically played electronic oboe improvisation over ambient sonics. And so
Okay.
we would do this live, and it was a flow state. It was in the moment. Again, I tried to channel Coltrane as best I could, but a lot of it is really melodic and slow, ethereal, emotional type of music, but it's about a feeling. There's no lyrics, it's instrumental, so I wouldn't recommend driving while you're listening to my music, but I will say it's going to take you to another dimension.
Okay. So on your sound walks, are you utilizing sound when you're doing sound walks?
That's a very interesting question, and some people do. I myself like the very um, I should say, fundamental way of doing a sound walk, which is to just listen to the environment that you're in.
Okay.
And so from that, it really sparks my creativity, and I'm starting to hear improvisations that are happening with, traffic or people talking or birds singing or the wind blowing through different trees and palms. That's the kind of thing I'm listening for on a sound walk. But I have, what I did do? I collaborated with a handpan player on one of my sound walks, and I had him way in the forest. And I said, okay, I'm going to walk with the group towards you. And he was playing handpan way off in the distance. And it
Oh,
started to rain. And we walked towards him, and in the rain, we were listening to him playing handpan, but also the drops of the rain were hitting the handpan, and eventually he stopped playing the pan, and the raindrops were playing the instrument. So it
oh,
was just a
wow.
beautiful moment, and it's so easy to intersect having a musician with a sound walk, and I like to do a little bit of both, but I have kind of myself kept them a little bit separate.
Okay. Well, that's good. So, what does Eve do to create a better life for herself? Talk about all this wonderful stuff you're doing for everyone else, and that's typical that we just like to help other people, and I get that. But what do you do for Eve?
I play with my dogs. I love just being with my dogs because, they're of the natural world. Sometimes I'll sit in my little sit spot in my backyard
Hmm.
and I'll watch how they interact with what's going on. It's all sensory. Their
Okay.
nose is twitching, their ears are twitching, they're very hyper aware of what's happening. Oh,
Oh,
look, a
yeah.
leaf. Oh, look, that other thing happened. Oh, did you smell that? And I like to try and imagine that I'm a dog, that I'm one of my dogs, and I just love spending time with animals, and so it puts me again in the moment even more.
Okay. I just had just this past week's guest. She likes to take her dogs out for walks, and she's in Florida. And she takes her dogs Fleetwood and Mac out for walks. And I love that name. That's great. So yeah,
I
uh,
love it. I love it. I have Sun and Moon. It's Astro and Luna. They're brother and sister.
perfect. Yeah, there you go. So everyone, I just want to emphasize once again that all of the well, plenty of information on the web for, on this podcast and the show notes for information about how to get in touch with Eve and the music that's available and so forth, and just reach out to her. And Eve, this has been such a wonderful, exhilarating, exciting opportunity that we've had together this today, and I look forward to. I'm going to get in touch again. I think we're going to do this again at some point. We'll figure something out. We'll focus on maybe on some bardic music or something. So this is lovely, I'll just say one more thing. Is there are there any other last thoughts that you have that have come to mind that you'd like to share with our folks?
You just used the word bardic, and of course, I know that I've taken the bardic course and that I am a certified bard. But then it just occurred to me, my musical background and then being a bard in that sense. And so I feel like maybe that is something that I do want to explore more. And you were talking about my music in sound walks, but my music with forest bathing, it could be a little piece that I bring into the full circle, and thinking about, what is my role as a bard. It's been a personal journey for me, and I do love speaking and I love presenting, and the music aspect has been something that I put to the wayside, but it's something that, you've inspired me with our talk today, that I said, it's the bardic tradition is to be a musician and to use your voice and your instrument to tell that story. And so I feel like that's a full circle moment for me.
Okay, good. Well, once again, Eve, thanks so much for being our guest today on Toward a Better Life. Go enjoy some of the springs there for us, okay?
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me. And I do hope that we get to meet in person at some point, that some of your listeners reach out to me. It's just a fascinating world, and I am so thankful for what you're doing for helping others have a better life.
That was Lady Eve once again with Meiji Sunbeams. And that's our show for this week. Thanks to Lady Eve for some very special insights into forest bathing and sound walks that can help us nurture a deeper appreciation, connection, and even love of forests and the natural world. You can learn more about this and so much more about Lady Eve, her work, and her music by connecting with her through her website, singingpines.co. There's a link in the show notes for that as well. There are links in the show notes for other things as well, like Toward a Better Life. And as always, dear listener, special thanks to you for tuning in. Remember, if you're seeking insights and advice on how to create a better life for yourself, and if you'd like to dive into self-care, self-development, experience hypnotherapy or distant shamanic work or Reiki, drop me a line, kevin@towardabetterlife.com, for your free discovery call. In that call, we can discuss our goals, set plans for achieving them, and moving forward with our journey toward a better life. You can also visit the website towardabetterlife.com for past episodes, blog entries, ways to enhance your spiritual journey, and upcoming events. Subscribe to Toward a Better Life through your favorite podcast platform, and do leave a review if you would on Apple, Spotify, Overcast, whatever podcast platform you might be using. It helps to spread the word about the podcast, and it increases the algorithm, so do that if you would, please. Always remember, if you'd like to share your story, music, prose, or if you want to be my guest, write to me, kevin@towardabetterlife.com. Until next week, enjoy your very special journey toward a better life.